Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for Promoting the Child's Right to Play, or a little shortened title is IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our promotion of play, where we want to get people to be more inclusive of play in the classroom, we've started these Porch Play Chats. And these are just conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. You can find all the Porch Play Chats on our website by going to ipausa.org, clicking on that top right-hand corner, subscribing to our YouTube channel, being a friend on our Facebook page. I don't know what you do, join or do something to Instagram. I'm too old. And then magically, every Monday, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. And so today, we're going to talk to Jennifer McCarville. And so Jennifer is the owner and director of Marvelously Made in San Antonio. And during the 2022 IPA USA conference, I had the pleasure of visiting Marvelously Made. I took over 40 pictures. I was so impressed with this facility that I wanted Jennifer to come on and talk to us about the vision and the mission of Marvelously Made. And so beyond being the founder and director of Marvelously Made, which they call it the School for Young Children, and it is, Marvelously Made was established in 2010 as a preschool, and since then has expanded to include children through the third grade. The school's philosophy is based on child development and brain research and is a place where children truly learn through play each day. And there was such evidence of it. I can't wait for her to describe it to you. And so Jennifer, when we think about how you incorporate play all the way through the third grade and every day, can you kind of give us sort of the scope of how you do that, and then really describe to us how the teachers and how the program is structured? Because I think lots of people are going to want to know this.
Sure, I'm happy to. Thanks for having me, Deb. I'm so excited. I was so excited when you visited our school, and it's just this modest little school where we're honoring development and the way children were created to learn. And we did start in 2010 as a preschool. I've been in early education now over 30 years. And I had lots of experiences, as we do, that form us and encourage us or inspire us, or maybe made me a little bit ornery. Determined to put into practice what we know about children and how they learn. And so I founded a school. We're a nonprofit, but I am the founder, and started that school in 2010 for children 3 through 5. We believe in the multi-age grouping. We know how beneficial that can be. In our 5th year, we added kindergarten. We had proven to be successful with educating parents. That's always been a key element of our school, because when we started, we'd have the children 2, maybe 3 years. And I knew that we could do all the right things while they were with us, but if the parents could be empowered with the information, then they could advocate for their children when they left us. And that was working, of course. We know when we honor children and allow them to learn through play and experience that it works. And then we added kindergarten, and then we slowly added 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. Our 1st through 3rd grade currently is a multi-age classroom. It is continuing to grow, and there's a possibility we might divide out one of those grades, but we haven't as of yet. And then we've just continued to honor children need to learn through doing, and playing looks different when you're 3 and when you're 10, but it's play. And that's what's important. It's the dabbling, the tinkering, the experiencing for yourself to build that foundation of knowledge. we're much less concerned about the information. The information can be important, but that base of knowledge and understanding that they can draw on is really important to us. And at the core of that is, of course, the social and emotional development of the children. When we build those strong relationships with them, then they can learn. They can rest in trying and things not working out and trying again. So it's really important to us that we have really strong relationships with them and that they have lots of space and time. But everything we do, I always say, I'm not making this stuff up. This is the brain research. This is the development. We're honoring it and we get to see it work. So our children learn through lots of play. I don't say playful experiences, they learn through play. And their experiences are play. So it does look different at each age level, of course, because the development's different.
It's different.
But it's always at every level, very hands-on and very experiential.
I think the beauty of your approach is that it is so multi-aged centered in each classroom that younger children can watch their older peers. And I mean, it's like Vygotsky it's like Vygotsky stream school is how I viewed it when I was there, because he always talked about you don't ability group children, which is what we seem to think we need to do to catch them up.
Right.
It is an authentic and natural way that children learn. But I mean, you don't put a child who can't walk in a room with other non-walkers, right? You put them in a room, if they're over 12 months, you put them in a room where there are toddlers that are walking around so they can watch them and figure out how they're doing it and be able to then manipulate their own bodies to be able to stand up and then to be able to maybe walk around furniture. And so it's to me, it's such a natural way for children to learn when they're in a multi-age classroom with other peers that are showing them what the next stage of development is just through their actions. And I think that's what is so beautiful about it. The other thing I really loved is that, and I have to tell you, Jennifer started in one building with Marvelously Made, and then they're sort of slowly taking over the block. And so each one it's really like a little house.
Yes, that's what we love about it too. Even if someone were to gift us our own property and the finances to do it this way, which we would welcome, we would still cluster in these little cottages. That feel of that sense of community and family. One of the things that I talk about a lot is that what we call happening in the current educational system, and I don't just mean the private schools, it's in public schools too, but currently in most educational environments is what people call traditional education. And that's not traditional at all. It's only a few hundred years old. What's traditional is for children to learn in clusters of mixed ages and around adults who are available to them and walking alongside them and letting them explore. And so it gives that same feel that, since the beginning of time, how we were designed was to be in these kind of like little tribes almost, where you have these multi-ages and influences and experiences. And so the buildings themselves, as it has unfolded, lend themselves perfectly to our philosophy of wanting to maintain that familial, tribal feel of we're a community and we are a larger community. We do a lot of things together as a larger community, but there's these little, smaller micro communities within the bigger. And so it's really been a blessing that it's happened that way. Also, it was not our intention really to continue to add grades like this. And, something that really tends to shock people about our school is every child leaves at 12 o'clock. So if ever given, again, the opportunity, which is always about funding, right? But if ever, and manpower, given the opportunity to do an all-day program on another location, I would welcome that at this stage in my career, because I just have this thing, which is what sparked Marvelously Made originally in 2010, that I'm just going to prove you can do it. And in that process, there's a lot of, missteps and steps backwards and steps forward. But when you honor children, none of that matters. it's really about just being present and honoring the development. So anyway, they all leave at noon. And I thought, parents can't do that. Who's going to do that? But we see the parents here do phenomenal things so that their children can come here. And it is humbling and really kind of overwhelming that they do that. Their stories of, one of the blessings of COVID and what's happening before COVID is this remote work flexibility. So now we have a lot of parents that are able to work remotely. And so they can juggle that. So, but, people think, oh, well, they all must be 2-parent working families. Oh, well, they all must be affluent. Oh, well, and none of that is true.
Right.
It's a group of people who have come to understand that there are differences in their choices they can make and sacrifices they can make. And I know not everyone can do that, which is why we have now branched out to what we call our Safe Childhood movement, because we know that whatever environment people are in, they can do the right things for children. It will look differently in different places. There are needs for the people who come half day, for the people who are in full time from the time they're infants, from the people who have, a single parent or who, whatever the situation. If we do the right things for children, we can actually save and preserve childhood for them. And we're watching it. We're doing it.
I know you are. And I think the biggest piece is we've lost sight, and not well, maybe existing parents if they're younger, because they didn't have the opportunity to do what you and I did, where we played for 12 hours a day and we came home when the street lights went on or the train whistle blew or something.
Right.
Or when mom called out the door and said, and so I think what has happened is that those of us who had those wonderful experiences of playing all day long without adult interference or direction have to have their life's work being protecting childhood, because many of I just think about my students in my college classroom. Many of them are No Child Left Behind students, right? They're
absolutely.
No Child Left Behind was 2001. They're now in community college in 2022, and so their whole school experience and even their younger childhood may not have had opportunities to play. So they're not even really quite sure what play is.
Right.
And so we do, of course, lots of play in the classroom so that they can sort of reconnect. But when I talk to families about the importance of play, and they're a little much younger than I am, but not as young as the students who went through No Child Left Behind, when I get them to remember what they did when they were children, they go, oh, yeah. Why are we putting them in 7 different, sports activities that are adult directed after they've been in school all day in an adult directed environment? And so it's this sort of aha moment, because, Bev Boss said that they have childhood amnesia,
right?
Because they don't remember.
Well, we don't remember what it was like. And what they do remember is tainted. We just get this filter of other things in life. It's the same reason that we'll have multiple children. I think if we remembered how painful it was the first time, but thankfully we kind of forget. But this isn't working the same in childhood. We need to remember the playing and the freedom but like you said, I have seen a huge shift in my time working with parents too, and those families that didn't have that, versus in the beginning years, parents were, children weren't raised that way. So the parents had that freedom that we experienced. Now, less and less, they've been in programs outside of their home from very young ages. And also you wonder if it's not emotionally pleasant if they can remember it. I think there's part of it that we just don't remember because it didn't feel good. And there's a difference in that too. We know that at the end of the day, if the children felt seen and respected and honored, that we've done our jobs. Exactly. So truly the child is the curriculum, that saying. And in that way, it means that we've connected with them and respected them. And I've always talked to the teachers about that. That's just, you don't have to worry about anything else as far as I'm concerned. And then the rest just comes
It
because
does.
they can. And the environment, of course, is definitely orchestrated to nurture that tinkering and inquisitiveness and exploration that they need to build their brains. So it's the pairing is what you need. And when you add parent education to that, usually people say, oh, we partner with parents. And I found in my observations years ago that a lot of times that meant parents tell us what to do and we do it at all cost, which would mean, parents will say, I want to see the proof of their learning. I need the worksheets. So we give them the worksheets. Parents want to say, what's their score? So I feel like when I've been away from them, they've learned something. So we give them the scores. But what parents really want are the good things for their children. And we have a responsibility to educate them, not to pull the wool over their eyes, and
and to help them recognize what their child is gaining
right
when they play. And that whole piece around documentation and that whole piece around the environment. So one of the things I want you to talk about is sort of the daily routine, or somebody who does good work in play calls it the daily rhythm.
We do call it a rhythm as well, because it's not confined to the clock. So in other words, if we normally have a gathering time at about 10:45 with our farmhouse children, which are preschoolers, the 3 through 5-year-olds, then some child has been waiting and waiting and waiting for a swing, and they just got on the swing. The teachers kind of signal each other like, okay, hold for 10 minutes and let's honor this child's waiting. And so it's more of a rhythm, like it's predictable. And we know there are a couple of things that are vital to the success of the children learning, in our opinions. And one is that the environment is prepared when they walk in the door. We call those the invitations to learning, or whatever people call them. We call them invitations. The invitations are all ready for the children, and the children come in, are warmly welcomed by the teachers, and they're able to have the freedom to choose where they work and play. And they can do that for as long as they want to, as long as they need to. In the preschool, we call it the farmhouse, the children all morning long until gathering time, they're never asked to come together. And even then, they're not required to. They all get a warning. We respect that. But the teachers are there to kind of be, the goal is to be invisible. And it's kind of a joke around here, because I want them all sitting down, melding in and being available if they need to refill something, or the children need support in some way. But I'd rather the children almost not know you're there, so that they have this, the illusion that we had of just exploring on your own and doing what you need to do. And the teachers will say things like, oh, do you need anything? And a lot of times what we'll do is observe what the children are doing. And if we think of something to add to it, we try not to talk, but we might go gather that item and kind of slide it on the table beside them as we walk away, or put it nearby. As they move into kindergarten, we call that the cottage. It's similar. They come in, they move into the outdoor classrooms. They do developmentally, they're ready for 2 gathering times. So after about 45 minutes, they go inside and they have a gathering time. And then they go into the indoor classrooms, and all of those invitations are set up. So the teachers just move around and support, and they're just naturally observing all the time. So they'll play games with them to introduce maybe some concept a specific child is ready for, but it's very individualized. And then they move into our primary classroom, and those children come in, our youngest ones, they start in the outdoor classroom. And then what people traditionally are 2nd and 3rd grade, we try to avoid calling them by grades. They actually all have tree names: the oaks, the maples, the willows. We're just trying to, mess up the conversation and mess with everybody's minds around here, so we can get out of some of those boxes that constrain our children so horribly. But so the 2 older grades, they start inside. And because they are a little older, they do come in, they have time to get situated, kind of like we all do. They're whole people. And
Mhm.
then they have a journal prompt that they work on. They do handwriting. Each child has an individualized contract for the week
Mhm.
that the teachers write up specific to that child that will have what they do throughout the week. And then they have a group gathering time, and then they have a teacher directed gathering time that alternate daily between language arts and math.
Mhm.
Those are in even smaller clusters.
Mhm.
And those children then have specific activities to build the skills in whichever level area they're in. We
Mhm.
do direct instruction in phonics starting in first grade. We believe
Mhm.
that's really important, but first grade is the time because seven's the
Mhm.
natural age for
Mhm.
formal teaching instruction. And then we do teach cursive because it uses both sides of the brain, and that's so
Mhm.
important, that bilateral integration for children.
Mhm.
That's never going to lose its value and importance. And so they have direct instruction. And as they get older and developmentally, they're more suited for that kind of sitting and learning together in a group. But we never take away the games. And the children in the primary class learn all of those group games outside too, Red Rover and jumping rope together and all of those things that always are focusing on that social emotional piece. And we just continually remind parents that emotional intelligence is the number one indicator of
Number
success as an
one.
adult.
Yes.
And, parents really want good things for their children. So when you share with them, this is the why behind the what, they rest in that. And we're finding our parents are having so much more joy in the journey of raising their children because they're
Yeah.
not feeling that pressure, or at least they're
Yes.
able to recognize it and reject it, I hope.
Yeah. And I mean, what a relief to know that your child is in the hands of people who are grounded in development, not grounded in grade level, who
Right.
are grounded in individualism with each child in planning and providing those goals for the older groups. That
Right.
instead of, everybody's going to be doing everything in a large group and you're all going to be doing the same thing at the same time and everybody's going to be on the same level,
Right.
instead of recognizing that not all children, no child is ever going to be on the
Right.
same level
Right.
everywhere. So can you describe the outdoor playground? Because I thought this was fascinating, and the responsibilities of each home, of each cottage.
Sure. So, well, the responsibilities are pretty much the same, no matter which developmental stage the children are in. But our outdoor areas in the preschool and the kindergarten, the children enter the classroom, and in first grade, they enter the classroom in the outdoor class. It enters school in the morning, excuse me, in the outdoor classrooms.
Mhm.
And they are classrooms. You can learn everything outside, you can learn inside. I've said that my entire career. I've left schools teaching where I had pushed my outdoor block to as long as possible. And I've heard, the teacher coming in after me saying, why were these children outside so much? And I just think, why wouldn't they be?
Why wouldn't they be?
And so they have art and science experiences and building and big sand pits. And those areas change as they get older
Mhm.
a little bit. But they have these abilities to do the large motor, the fine motor, nooks for reading. There are books everywhere. There's trikes and large motor, just whatever they need outside. And that stuff changes just a little bit. There are so many things that are staples that are important for children. And so one of the things we work really hard on is changing a little bit. We really embrace kind of less is more, not overwhelming children.
Mhm.
And so we have a lot of course, those open-ended materials and loose parts.
Mhm.
Very little commercialized items. We don't have anything commercialized as far as cartoons and those kinds of, brands and those kinds of things. But even what
Mhm.
the children play with, it's a lot of dishes and real materials and brooms. And so they come in and, like I said, they can choose any of those things. And it just encompasses everything: language, math, science, the games, but so many loose parts. And the children, we learned that, or we know this, that it takes 25 minutes for someone to get actively engaged in an activity before they start building new neuro bridges. And you look
Mhm.
at your classroom and you think, well, the children are spending, 10, 15 minutes. my son's 23, my baby. And when he was in kindergarten, I volunteered in his classroom once a week. And he had the kindergarten teacher who was teacher of the year for the district the year before. And she was all that and a bag of chips. But every 10 minutes, 15 at the most, she clapped her hands and hollered at the children. It was time to do a different content area. They would sit, they would do math for 10 minutes where she was instructing and they weren't doing anything. And then she'd clap her hands and say, okay, now it's time to do reading. And I thought, well, no wonder children can't pay attention. I mean,
know.
So we are really committed to those long periods of time for the children to get deeply engaged. And so they spend at least 25 minutes.
And I think that is what is, that's why I love you so much. Everything you say is what I did as a teacher and what I have strongly believed in forever, that we have to allow children long blocks of time to figure things out. And, I walk into preschool classrooms and I walk into primary grade classrooms and it's large group instruction and everybody's doing the same thing. And every 15 minutes we're rotating to a new place. And I'm like, oh my God, that's not how you learned. I just want to look at them and say, that's not how you learned. And that's not how these kids
still not
learn.
how we learn. I mean, when I teach teachers and I train teachers and I work with parents, like they're moving. They're doodling, they're getting up when they need to, they're going to the bathroom, you know what I mean? They're whole people. These children are thinking about other things. And teachers can tend to be, with the pressure that's put on them, they become very egocentric. Like, sit down, be quiet. I've prepared this and you're just lucky to be here to learn. And so we're constantly saying, you've got to be less egocentric than the children. It can't be about you. And that takes a sense of humility that I find is sometimes hard for us as adults, because we're excited.
And we just did in child development last week, we just did Kohlberg's moral stages of development, right? So we talk about what each stage looks like, and we talk about what's important in each stage. And then I have them go and say, what do we need to do as an individual based on the lessons that we've learned from other individuals who left law and order behind, recognizing that the laws aren't equitable. And we do all sorts of examples of what is equality and what's equity. And when do we leave that behind and do what's right instead of what the law says? And when in the past did individuals go to jail or get arrested or die because they were doing the right thing, not what the law said? And we expand on that and we talk about, when do you get to the point where you say, wow, this social contract with humans is more important than what this rule or law says. And you have to, and kids are learning that
by example. That's how they learn.
Second, third, fourth, fifth grade, and they're learning it in the preschool classroom. And so sometimes I say to teachers who are stuck and feel like they have to follow the rules, is this a rule you really believe in? Or is this a rule that we need to figure out a way to navigate? Because they don't believe in what they're being forced to do. They don't. Many of them don't. And so, we have to give them the power, I think, to push back a little bit against the rules and be able to start advocating for what's equitable, not what the rule is.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, 13 years, this is our 13th year as Marvelously Made. And I've had a lot of teachers, come through. They've never seen it in action. And I hadn't either. I mean, I was born and raised in Texas, and people call it a progressive education, which is hysterical. You can't, and it's a traditional education, but it is like mind-blowingly progressive because we've been so overwhelmed by the last, the constraints of our systems. But I don't know how I ended up this way. I do know that I came to a place where what I knew was not lining up with what was happening. And at the end of the day, that's educational malpractice.
Yes.
And I find myself using that phrase more and more often, which is heartbreaking. But you know what? My job is to be the voice for the children.
Yes.
And I love the adults and I want to empower and equip and encourage and hear them and work with them to do the right things for children. But I refuse to get the development out of order and I refuse to compromise the children. And not
Yes.
everyone has that luxury, but we have to quit calling it a luxury. It's like a human right.
It is.
If any other person, if a doctor didn't understand anatomy, we wouldn't go to him. Like you don't get to call yourself a teacher and spend your days with children, or you shouldn't get to, if you're going to implement malpractice in your field. And
Right.
that's serious. And I mean it. And so even during the pandemic, we made some decisions that we knew honored the development of children, knowing that we are a small nonprofit that operates on donations and tuition and fundraising. And we knew that we might go under because we weren't willing to compromise some things. And, actually we were fortunate. There's just no bones about it. But what happened during the pandemic for us is we actually opened an option for 4th through 8th grade children who have finished through our school, and they come half day, and their parents, it's called the Collective, and the parents teach language arts and math at home, which, they're fortunate to do. Some hire tutors, some do that piece or one of those pieces online with an online class. But here in community, they do handwork and art and science and history and gardening, all of those things under the science umbrella. And they get to do that in community. And it's amazing. And then we talk about educating the whole child, and yet no one's really doing that. But when your children leave at noon, they go home and they rest and everybody needs to rest. They rest in the ways they need to. They're able to balance family time. When you learn about how much time the brain needs to process the input it's been given, they have time for their brain to process the learning. So the learning is solid. It's not, I never have time to process this in my brain. I just move to the next thing and it's lost.
Right. Yeah, it's lost. It goes right back out. Hold on just a second. I'm sending a message. Hold on just a second. Sorry. So we're gonna wrap up in just a second, but let me just tell Kathy where we are. Just finishing up. Okay, those are people in the waiting room. Sorry, my apologies.
It's okay.
Stay with me while I close this out, but I do want to tell everyone that next April, be watching for the invitation. Jennifer McCarville and some of her teachers are going to do a town hall for us so that you can actually see this facility, so that you can learn more about their philosophy and their mission and what they do every day in every classroom, in every cottage. And so be watching for that, because I will tell you, it's amazing. And I want you to be able to see it like I was able to see it. So hang in there, Jennifer, while I close this out. To learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.